Well, welcome to you if you are watching on our live recording this morning. It's been a moment. It has been a moment. We are back, but just the three of us. Ripley is not here. I'm not quite sure what he's doing. Is it a secret what he's doing? He said he was going to meetings and stuff, but he didn't actually reveal who the meetings were with.
Well, he's at a brand that we've never done really anything with before, so it's a new company in a new country that we've never been to. So
No
you always
danger.
ask yourself, is my editor going to return from this trip? You know, it's a legitimate question.
Right, so it's a new brand in that it's an established brand we've never dealt with, or like it's a new
No,
brand
I wouldn't call it an established brand.
Right, okay.
It's look, I'm not saying they've done anything to lead to be suspicious, but we know these days in 2024, if you start up a luxury watch brand, there's no way that you're completely on the level.
It's a quiet
Ripley,
transition
there,
from human trafficking into watchmaking. Yeah.
Bring back stories of horology from wide and far.
I'm now extra intrigued as to what's going on here. So that's good. So
I'm building up some suspense so that he can share with us the adventure. But if he somehow does not return, then we might have to set up a return Ripley fund.
I mean, at the very least, it gives us a story. And what's journalism about if it's not about stories?
Right. What is a watch without a story?
We look forward to. I mean, it's probably one route to get a watch named after you. You know, like you can go to the moon, you can fly in space, you can jump from wherever, you can be a racing driver. But I suppose being kidnapped by the watch brand is likely to get the actual watch they release named after you, at least in folklore. The Ripley, they'll call it, as he's, there'll be stories heard of, have you got the Ripley? Do you know the story behind the Ripley?
I feel there already are a few watches called Ripley, so it's not going to be as exciting to
him. 50 years from now, they'll be in Red Bar. Say, you know what the secret of this watch is? This watch is called the Ripley. Do you want to know why? Because there was a podcast that was kidnapped 50 years ago. You remember podcasting? You remember when everybody did a podcast, and now it's all private.
You think this is a temporary thing? These amateur radio shows we all love.
You do. You gotta wonder. Whether. I mean, we play Guess the Price of the Seiko because there are so many Seikos that come along. We could equally play how many listeners has that podcast got? Because there are so many. So
you mean the show in 50 years would be, hey, remember watches? Remember that was the thing? Remember people used to get like excited because every week there'd be new ones?
Exactly. And now we all just wear Rolexes.
Do you think that's what it's going to be? Everyone's going to consolidate to just the Rolex. It's going to be the last remaining watch.
Well, there's got to be a chance. There's got to be a chance.
We should do like a Mad Max thing where the word for watch is Rolex, right? All there is Rolexes. So when you say Rolex, all you really mean is wristwatch. It becomes a noun.
Heuer, or what else is there?
Kleenex. Frisbee.
Is Frisbee? What's it called?
It's a flying disc, sir.
Just a flying disc.
Yes.
Well, this is what you come to the show for. So if you are listening to this, actually, no, that doesn't work. I can't advertise this on that for the other things. Never mind. Anyway, we will get started on our show. So let's do some clapping in on the count of 3. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Greetings and welcome to this week's aBlogtoWatch Weekly. You have already missed Frisbee Chat, the watch brand that has kidnapped Ripley, which is why he's not here, and many, many other things. So you'll need to go to aBlogtoWatch Weekly live on YouTube if you want to hear the preamble. And if you can't wait till our Thursday or Friday to get this show in your ears on your podcast of choice, you can always go to YouTube. And if you dare to be up at 7:30 in the morning, approximately UK time, on a Tuesday, you can even join in the show. So go and check out aBlogtoWatch Weekly live on YouTube. We are going to focus quite a bit on some stories in the industry this week, and then some watches when we get to Hit Miss Maybe. So first up is this as reported on Watch Pro, I think this will probably be the Watch Pro show because we're going to go there quite a bit this morning. Rolex relinquishes grip on Formula One as LVMH becomes global partner. Ariel, you were doubting Thomas over this many weeks ago. I seem to recall. He was like, give me the evidence that this is going to happen. Well, it has happened. The question is, what do we think? Have Rolex been wise?
Oh, yeah.
We're not paying 3 times the price for this. Or have LVMH won a watch, so to speak?
I mean, this is very similar to sort of the psychology in an auction house where there's this lot which you want, but the auction house knows that like the bidding process often gets you to pay more than you're actually willing to pay because you want to like win something. And Formula One has a very sophisticated history of making money. There's the whole Bernie Ecclestone years and all that stuff. So they see themselves as wanting to make a lot of money through this timepiece sponsorship. And they're raising the price. And this whole thing gets, LVMH very excited. They love all this stuff. This is what publicly traded companies just love. This idea that they're investing in something and people get excited about it and it's going to, pay them dividends down the road. And Rolex is just looking at the numbers is like, yep, it's just not worth that. Like, it's just not worth that, guys. Like, we understand you want more money, but you're not giving us any more than really had before. And it's just not worth that. So Rolex, who always has a long-term vision, and they pride themselves on this for better or worse, but it often works out well, is like, well, we're going to imagine that car racing isn't going anywhere. And if it is, then it's probably good that we stop spending on it now. And in a few years after this hype blows over and people focus on whatever Formula One settles into, LVMH will probably get bored and recognize they are spending a lot and naturally shift their interest to some other thing. And the price will go down and Rolex will return and much of the public will be none the wiser for it. So I think they made a very rational move. I think they understood that while there's some face loss here, right? It does look kind of silly where a big sponsorship of yours is, suddenly lost because someone spent more money than you. Like, oh, Rolex, you're so rich, you couldn't spend more. But I think that they said, we'll just take that money and easily buy that awareness in another way, which again is the more rational way of looking at it. So I think if you're Rolex in this situation and you're presented with this renegotiation strategy by Formula One, I think this is the smart move to make.
Okay, so David, do we know where the warehouse is that Rolex keep all the clocks that they use in the current Formula One? And can we mount a raid to get some? Because I could really do with one on the farm.
And the miles of banners. We all want to, line our walls with it.
Oh yeah, we could easily line all our walls and the farm. I think it's interesting. I don't think it's just about awareness, though. I think it's equally about being present in the pinnacle of things. And Rolex has basically lost their presence at the pinnacle of motorsport. So I think that is a loss in a way, not just because they have lost goodness knows how many tens of millions of eyeballs basically every weekend or every other weekend, but also because they are out and they no longer own this. So maybe they will lean a little bit more heavily on Le Mans and the endurance racing and Daytona 24 hours. But at the same time, I think it was a good match to Rolex, even though it was overdone in a way. And you mentioned getting bored. It felt like Rolex got bored with Formula One too. So it's not just an LVMH thing. It was just miles of banners at all these races. At some point, it was ridiculous when one camera would cut to the other and then, the corners would progress and all you would see is just Rolex a gazillion times with no other sponsor. And, their activations sort of stopped. And the whole thing was just like, okay, let's sit this one out until our contract expires. That's the vibe I was getting from Rolex, which is a bit of a shame because it really was a good match between the two.
So where do they go now? They've got $58 million burning a hole in their pocket that they use for sponsorship. Do they not bother? Do they take a leaf out of somebody else's book and buy a watch media conglomerate? But we'll come on to that later on.
They just buy more real estate.
That's all. Buy more Omega boutiques as landlords.
Well, actually that makes sense because their model is not to necessarily do the final sale, buy the inventory, and do all that. But they might as well own the store, right? Because most watch retailers still pay rent. So if they're paying rent to Rolex, then Rolex definitely gets to control a lot of the process. And it's like, whoa, we're just owning prime jewelry store real estate here, right? That might be a good place for them to do that. We don't ultimately know. I'm not really sure. I think it's a unique era. I don't know if it's about one event. Maybe they spread it out to a bunch of other little things here and there. This is one of the big questions, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see what that is. Rolex isn't necessarily going to talk about it. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, maybe this also on Watch Pro is a hint of things to come. Rolex and Bucherer, who are now owned, open a new showroom in China. So effectively, this is the first boutique that essentially Rolex have opened that they own in China, a market that Bucherer are not that
let's
big.
hold on.
Maybe that's where they put their money.
Let's not jump to conclusions here, because there have been many Rolex boutiques that are owned by the retailers they work with. So yes, it's true that Rolex happens to own Bucherer, but this isn't something that is out of the ordinary for the relationships they have with third-party retailers. So there's nothing special here that they're not doing with third-party companies.
So you are the chief executive of a sport, maybe a slightly minority sport. What sport would you like to be going, yes, bring us your Rolex? I mean, what other sports are there actually out there? I mean, they already do. They're not going to do. I doubt they're going to do football. I don't think that's in keeping, although it would be really interesting for Rolex to go, you know what? Formula One, you've got all these eyeballs. We'll just go and sponsor the English Premier League because it's got even more, or the World Cup or something like that. Move over Hublot, move over LVMH Group. Do we think there'll just be a swapping, a changing of the guard? Those, should football be worried because suddenly LVMH's money is being spent in Formula One and won't be available for all the things that Hublot does, Zenith sponsoring its own motorsport stuff, etc., etc.?
I don't know, but it's a lot about winning, right? So Rolex likes when human achievement can be demonstrated. Like they wouldn't sponsor like drone racing because there isn't humans competing, right? So it needs to be like a human which is doing something amazing and then winning. And they like the idea that the winner gets the Rolex. So all these people can imagine, oh, if I buy myself a Rolex, I also can imagine myself a winner. So that's sort of the basic formula they like.
So bearing in mind the big thing that's going on in human achievement is trying to get back to the moon. Do you think that Rolex and SpaceX stroke NASA is
So
really
you're saying rocket racing? That's the new thing for them?
Well, I think, the Rolex moon watch, I think, would just be the most...
The cosmograph, you mean?
Of the yes.
Yeah, what the cosmograph should be.
Yeah. Let's move over Omega. Someone's taking our F1 toys. We're going to take the toy that hangs in the sky at night, reflecting the rays of the sunshine. Move over the Speedmaster. Maybe that's what they should do.
I'm for rocket racing, sure.
I mean,
I would just put all the Rolex testimonies in a rocket, in a spaceship, and shoot them into the moon. Just all the testimonies.
As opposed
for a
to
group
people. A group picture. Good stuff. Right. Well, that's our first story this week. We might see how all of these link together. Our second story this week, and I can't believe I forgot to cover this last week. Let's warm up the juices of watch critiquing, and we don't often do politics, much though I would like to do politics a lot more. If anyone's got any space in a politics podcast, please. The Trump watch. What was everyone's reaction? I mean, I just laughed out loud when I saw this. I thought this is just such the world's biggest grifter grifting in the world's biggest market where grifting is possible. Like, you couldn't combine two things more grift-worthy than the watch world and Donald Trump. Thoughts, feelings, emotions?
I mean, I think that on a larger level, it's a demonstration that enough people now see the watch industry as a place to have high margins. We'll call it that way, right? They're like, wait a minute, people are making huge amounts of money selling these timepieces for how much money? Like, who's a sucker? So Trump and his team sees a place where suckers can spend money. It's a fundraising technique. Okay, that's all this is. It's a pure fundraising technique. What I said to some people, the reason aBlogtoWatch isn't covering this is that it does not advance horology or the hobby in any way. Like, unless you're into really weird gimmicky watches and just want something for your collection of just freak show timepieces, there's nothing about this. There's no value here. There's like these overpriced copycat divers looking watches, and this overpriced, it's funny, it's an overpriced tourbillon with like the cheapest Swiss made tourbillon. I think that really defines it. It's like we wanted to sell a watch for $100,000, and to do that we need to make it as cheaply as possible, so we're going to use the cheapest Swiss made watch, so just barely enough to get by and say it's Swiss made, so they could charge us this huge amount. Again, it's a fundraising thing. I think it just goes to this larger notion that his team quite quickly established that, watches are mainstream enough that this is a good next scam. And I think it's good for our hobby in a sense that there's this much awareness, right? If the most popular fraudsters feel that this is a cool area, like, there's got to be something to this hobby, right?
Or it's going to just be, yeah. I'm not sure that's the way around it works. I'm not sure which came first, the fraud or the fraudster.
That's not his first watch. He's had watches with his name on it.
Yeah, but I think it is evidence. Is it the first ever watch that the price has come before the watch? What
does that mean?
As in, we can't be seen trying to sell a cheaper watch, even though they are selling a cheaper watch. Well, we need to have a watch that we can sell at $100,000. That's the word I want coming out of my mouth. Here's $100,000 watch.
This is the new NFT.
And then the reverse engineer from the price. Right? How much margin can we make?
There's no correlation between the price point and the cost of the good. The idea is that we want to maximize revenue. So if we're going to find an item that we can feel that we can maximally BS, right? Like we know that there's no original parts here. They stamped the name on the dial, not even that well. The case, the dial, the hands, the bezel, the movements, nothing is fresh. This is parts bin city. Okay. There's nothing here. Like, this is just I call it the white label watch. Okay. It's just like, put your logo here. This is the same as like a cheap corporate gift, but instead of it being a corporate gift, it's being sold as a fundraising mechanism. And the tourbillon is just because he has had enough interaction now with the luxury world that he knows that, there's this expensive watch, there's this bling watch, not just these cheap watches. I hear that these really big watches out there. What do they got? Oh, they got the tourbillons and the diamonds and the gold. Okay. The funny thing about this watch is, assuming that it actually ends up being made out of gold, it's going to be the nicest material for the worst case. I mean, look at the stamped bracelet, stamped everything. It's just like,
I was looking at that exactly.
So it's like, if you want a new watch that looks like, I guess, the best they could manage in, I don't know, some part of the 70s or something like that, or 80s of mass-produced watches, maybe like that's what this is. It's hilariously mismatched to what we as enthusiasts look for in a fine timepiece. I think that's what's so funny. Like, it so misses the mark of what actual people that care about this hobby would want in a watch.
Does anybody understand why there's 147 of them? Is that some
47th president? I don't know. Wasn't that one of the...
Is it a relevant number in America?
Yeah, 40, because the president number.
Was he number 47? I'm
losing count. It's about that.
No, I've lost count of all my presidents.
That's what he wants. But remember, this watch, it has nothing to do with him being president. He's fully aware that the Trump brand is going to outlast this candidacy. So nothing about these watches say president at all. He's already planning his brand after his apex of his political life. This is phase 2. He has legal bills and a high lifestyle. All these people around him, these are big salaries. He has to keep doing these schemes to make money. He has to keep doing this until he dies, or else he doesn't have huge money in the bank.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. I because Ripley's here, I did say to Guy, who joined for Hitman's maybe he could join us slightly early if he was available. He has just appeared, so I'm gonna let him in, and the first thing he's gonna see is a Trump watch. Let's see if we can get an instant reaction. Here we go. Good morning, Guy. Instant reaction to the Trump watch you see in the screen right now.
Oh wow! I mean, just wow. It's actually quite hard to make it look that cheap. To put so many diamonds on something and make it look that cheap.
Tiny diamonds.
Tiny diamonds.
Yeah, although David loves diamonds, so he's probably loving it.
I mean, tiny hands.
I'm lapping it all up.
Guy, can I just say, I think you've got some audio leak.
Yeah, I'm going to sort that now. I am going to sort that now. Give me a minute.
Let you sort that. Yeah, I can still hear my voice back at me.
Welcome to the echo chamber.
But
I'm
gonna
have to go out and come back.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I suppose all of those tiny diamonds, it helps if you've got tiny hands with which to micro place them. I suppose it's a
If you patently want to spend way more than you should on a timepiece, has this character got a terrible opportunity for you?
Yeah, I just feel that this watch needs to become the new benchmark for something that we talk about. I'm not quite sure how to work it into every conversation.
Benchmark?
But well, I think that, you know how we had the F91W as the hit miss maybe watch? You know,
how about this? Is it less effort than the Trump Tourbillon?
Yes, that's good. I like that. I was thinking we should start ranking all of the brands to kind of move them up and move them down depending on, you know, the actual releases. So I think we start that now. We start the Trump Tourbillon as the watch that you're either above or below in terms of your latest release. Guy's back in the room. Can you hear us, Guy?
I'm back. I can hear you. Echo
That's
gone.
Good. Echo gone. Let me just turn you down a bit. Yeah, so we'll use the Trump Tourbillon watch for judging all other watches now from now on. Anyway, right. Any further thoughts on that, gentlemen? Guy?
Have you looked at the other? I mean, this is just one of the range as well.
Yeah, well, it's true. We haven't actually talked about the other ones. There is these ones, which is the... I mean, Guy, I don't wish to equate what you do with what this guy's doing, but he's obviously sourcing, you know, some pre-produced cases in the most mass market way he can. How much? Ours
are not pre-produced cases.
Well,
ours are very much bespoke cases.
You go and search out the most trashiest of trash to make them. I'm just trying to draw a link here that, in the same way that last week I think it was, Ariel suggested taking the $1 million JLC and using it for parts. Should we actually be buying up Trump watches? Is there a market in buying a $499 Trump watch and using it as the actual source of the trash for
it's even, you know, people talk about generic watches and, you know, ours are supposed to look kind of like vintagey and generic, but with a colourful twist. And this is like the most generic looking watch you could ever get.
And how much, you obviously know about sourcing stuff, how much do you think this $499 limited edition pre-order for Christmas, because that's important.
I haven't looked at the spec, but I think the interesting thing about pre-order for Christmas is I want your money before the election, and you're not getting your watch before the election.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a very good point. But how much do you reckon it actually costs to make a watch like this? I mean, what's the margin?
What movements it got?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's probably made of cheese. I don't think it actually tells you. It'll probably be one of these ones that's got its own.
It's going to be the BCP, I think, the same that Bio uses in their Swiss-made tourbillon. I think it's the exact same thing.
I know, sorry, in the 499. I don't know the 499 one. We've never done a tourbillon. I will say it's interesting. It depends. There is a lot that comes down to kind of. I was amazed by how much lume was. We use Superluminova lume, But like the Lume and the sapphire crystal puts the cost of ours up quite a lot. Lume is super expensive.
Lume is
For anybody-
expensive. There we go.
These
Yeah,
the cheaper watches do not have a sapphire crystal.
They don't have a sapphire. At $500, they don't have a sapphire crystal.
No. These watches should cost $80.
For
Yeah.
wholesale or retail?
Oh, well, they cost way less than that to make.
So I mean, I have no clue. Is this like $10 to make?
If it doesn't have an automatic movement and it's not got sapphire crystal and it's not got a superluminova and it's a crap grade steel, 40 odd, 40,
make.
50 quid
To
to
make.
make.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, depending on the volumes, I'd say between about $20 to $40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
know.
especially if they haven't done mold costs, because mold costs are quite expensive as well. And like design costs and
This
mold
is
costs.
100% parts bin.
Yeah.
Well, it
course.
also
I'm
depends.
back into the parts bin in a few months.
It also depends on whether you actually pay your suppliers, of course, because there's always that option,
Yeah.
which is you get them made, you ship them, you sell them, you don't actually pay the person that's actually made them for you. Not that I'm saying that that's a possibility in someone that's being convicted. of
Although they are,
excessive
actually, I think he made a point that they're all Swiss made. I know he made a point that Tourbillon's Swiss made.
Where
Barely.
do you think? Barely. Do you think? I mean, this feels like when Livingston set out. Did Livingston set out to find the source of the Zambezi? This feels like we should be setting out to find the source of the Swissness.
No, we already know who it
Not-
is. It's
okay.
already been established who makes the Tourbillon. That person's doing most of the white labeling. I mean, there's no confusion here. It's already established who's helping. It's a white labeler, and it's basically like, hey, we want a gold watch with a Tourbillon and diamonds. We don't need anything new. Put our name on it. How quickly can we get this together? Like, there's no secret here. Like, this is this is the epitome of buy low, sell high. Nothing more complicated than that.
Well,
I think the one thing in the States, though, is collecting is such a massive thing. I mean, if you look at when he bought the horrible gold sneakers out, collecting is such a big thing that actually it's probably worth buying one of 143 or, stick it in a box,
Wait,
stick it in
but
a safe.
worth
And
why? Because again, like, do you want to be the guy that resells this later to someone else who wants it more? That's like selling Nazi memorabilia. Let's be honest.
I would not in any way want to fund Trump, so I wouldn't do it. But, it's kind of a historical arc of, artifact of the
So is
future.
the guillotine. Do you want to look at that every day?
No, but if you had like the guillotine that like chopped off, I'm listening to the rest of this history podcast about Marie Antoinette at the moment. Quite into guillotines. But if you had the guillotine that chopped off Marie Antoinette's head, that's going to be worth a few quid, yeah?
I see how you like to make money. Interesting.
Everyone's got to make a living. The hustle is
Does it
real.
have diamonds on it?
Yeah, that's not in the spirit of the French Revolution, apparently.
Right.
Diamonds
Is it
on a
not?
guillotine.
Well, while we're talking about hustles, let's go to the one that I most want to talk about because this I don't know. Let's discuss whether this has any impact at all in the world whatsoever. Talking of hustle, Watches of Switzerland Group buys Hodinkee. Thoughts, gentlemen? Because I have some. Other than predicting
Hustle's
this.
harsh.
I'll go last. I have a lot to say.
Guy, when you saw this news, any immediate reaction?
Well, I mean, it's a business in trouble, isn't it? I didn't see any figures on it, and
There are
I
none.
follow business news quite. There are no, yeah.
It
So
was such a small deal. Watches of Switzerland didn't even need to let their shareholders know or declare it in the media.
yeah, and it's LVMH are getting out, aren't they? And LVMH are savvy investors, and they've got to take a cut at some point. It doesn't work. It didn't work for LVMH, who are, if you look at El Caterton and their investment arms, especially they've done about 5 dog food companies, so I know them quite a lot through my other life. They had to go somewhere. They had to get rid of it. They had to do something. From Watches of Switzerland's point of view, is they've just bought a load of free Well, it's just basically paying for advertising up front, isn't it?
Just advanced spending. I don't
And
know,
getting them online.
I just don't understand long term what either party gets out of it. Ben is now working in a company
Well, I'll tell you what,
he doesn't own
either
any
party
of.
gets out.
He's maybe got some watches of Switzerland shares and a guarantee of a salary for so long. But you would think, having created a thing, that you would just lose interest quite quickly when you realise that you're being run by corporates.
Well, if there was a line in the press release about, he made it very clear that he hadn't been operational for the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a long history of unsuccessful investment ventures where the founding entrepreneur comes back to kind of bring it back to life,
Mm-hmm.
which, from Apple down. So I think he was pushing for a bit of that angle on it. I mean, it's kind of like you've got to do it or it's going to die. So like you say, he gets a salary. Hodinkee stays alive. And Watches of Switzerland get a load of free media.
Yeah. I think if he had a tidier desk, he'd probably make better decisions. I think
I'd kill for a desk that tidy.
Yeah, I see. To be fair, so would I. David, your thoughts on this from a media perspective? Just to be encouraged, sort of behaviour to be encouraged.
I mean, it's interesting that they got sold again or invested in again for goodness knows how many rounds of investment and ownership changes have happened over the course of the last number of years. It was also fascinating from a content creator's perspective to see how the audience would react to previous takeovers and whatnot. And because from within we see things that we don't say out loud, not on the podcast, we don't say it in articles, we don't even imply them, but we know what is happening. And this has happened a number of years ago when we knew that something was happening, but we had to wait out and see whether the audience would put two and two together and realize what is the sort of content that they are consuming from then on. And it took a long time for the majority of the audience to catch on and to realize that when something stops being an independent media. And I think they've dragged that out for quite some time, and they have a very strong image in a way that has helped them. But there has to be a turning point, which again, a number of years ago, we only had to guess when that would come, when people will say, well, do I trust you in this current form to educate me on my next purchase decision? And, that snowball is, just rolling further and further downhill at this point with Watches of Switzerland taking the whole thing over. So it's out there.
Yeah. I do wonder to what extent they will have to declare legally various interests when they represent watches that effectively they retail, because they're 100% owned by watch. It's not like it's
I wouldn't think of it like that.
Investment.
I would think of it as much more smarter, as more of a data play, because you then you're getting data that you can then market to people with. Yeah. So I think it will be less overt than you think, but the group then owns the data of the people that are looking and can remarket to the people that are looking. So I don't think it'll look as biased as you might think, but I think behind the scenes it will.
I'll tell you a story. I don't think I've ever told this story before, but now when would it be? Was it COVID time? It was maybe pre-COVID. Anyway, Hodinkee were going through their let's engage with the audience, and they put on their website, come join us for a Zoom chat. We'll tell you all about what's happening in Hodinkee, blah, 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 blah. Sign up here. And I thought, okay, I'll sign up and see what happens. This is when I was at Scottish Watches. I'll sign up and see what happens. And I got an invite to this Zoom meeting, went along, and there was about 6 of us, or 8 of us, and it was Cara. Ben wasn't there, but it was it Russell? Would that be the guy's name? Whatever, former chief executives, and basically they were spilling their guts as I'm hiding in the corner going, I hope they don't realise I've just let somebody else in the room here. But they were, all their ambitions about being Rolex, they'd love to be able to sell Rolex. They want to create memberships, all the rest of it. Their ambition was very large and very much away from, pure journalism. It was all about, it was all about partnerships and relationships. I do have a question though before we go into Ariel. On the one hand, you've got Rolex buying Bucherer, so biggest watch brand in the world buys one of the biggest retailers in the world, and now you've got their biggest competitor, one of their biggest competitors in Watches of Switzerland, buying an enormous media outlet. Is there not an inherent danger here for Watches of Switzerland and their relationship with Rolex?
Well, I mean, the relationship with Rolex is difficult to define in terms of the stability. You know, things always change. Rolex doesn't pull the dealership status easily. It wouldn't happen like that, but may not give you as much in terms of allocation. I think that Watches of Switzerland recognizes that it's going to be selling Rolex watches in the long term, and to do that, it's going to be harder work tomorrow than it is today. I believe that the primary reason that they purchased Hodinkee was out of the related to the insecurity of Bucherer, of course, getting Rolex, and says, how can we improve our Rolex footprint? For a number of years, Hodinkee has spent a lot of resources creating SEO-friendly, Rolex-focused content online. And they really, really leaned into that, both new Rolex and old Rolex. They've just really heavily invested in a lot of content. So what they believe is that for years and years and years, people searching for this information about Rolex will find these pages, and if our ads are there, then maybe we'll be able to capture that. So I think that that's probably the primary idea, is that we'll get them to write about those brands that, you know, we're selling. And it didn't really need to go too much further than that. And it is this, you know, database. So I think that that is why they want it. Is that a hugely valuable thing? It's arguable. I mean, there is value there. But I guess the question is, can you directly monetize that? People are reading this page to get information about Rolex. Does that mean that they're going to now go and buy the Rolex at the store advertised? That's, I guess, one of the larger questions. I'm somewhat saddened by this overall, because I think it is created a perversion of what watch media is really supposed to be. I think the difference between aBlogtoWatch and a company like Hodinkee fundamentally is that I don't like to make promises until I know that things can be delivered, and they have no problem promising people things that may not be true, such as promising something to a brand or promising something about the experience of a watch or the outcome of buying something to an audience member. But they're part of a classification of sales-focused companies that, again, are willing to sell the dream, so to say, as opposed to sort of have a more matter-of-fact academic look, like I try to do with aBlogtoWatch. About 2012-ish, I don't remember the first time that Hodinkee was sold from it being, I guess, owned by Ben to with the Kevin Rose situation. And I had some involvement in that behind the scenes. That's a whole other story. But that was the packaging of watch media as a potential investment vehicle. It was basically saying, hey, everyone, I think that with a little bit of money and some hard work, we can fundamentally make a lot of more money out of this than it is right now. Making money as watch media is hard. And I understand why Ben probably wanted to sell, because he just saw an uphill battle and figured, hey, maybe some investor will want to come in and know what to do with this. But there wasn't really a business model to grow too much larger than he was. And that's the nature of media. So they become then a business model that is trying to make money. And they went from pool of cash to pool of cash. So Kevin Rose gave them several years of spending money, and then someone else gave them several years of spending money. And then now they're just sort of purchased. So they've this dream that they had of making money to fund the operation in a way that allowed them to be watch media store, it never really panned out. It was just an idea that they sold, and and that's what investors are looking to buy. Investors are looking to buy dreams, right? And that's why these things fail so much, because there is no promises. There's no guarantee. It's just promises and personalities. It's never been what I like to do. It's not what excites me. I'm too worried about letting people down, which a lot of bad blood over all this, right? There's a lot of people. I mean, David and I know we're colleagues with a lot of these people for years. Like, there's a lot of bad blood out there now about the Hodinkee situation, and I never wanted people to feel that way about aBlogtoWatch. So this was, it starts with them not wanting to be or not happy with being watch media, feeling like there's some way of sort of having one foot in watch media and one foot somewhere else, and just selling that idea to a bunch of people who didn't really understand and kept putting money in. And all it really does is kick the can down the road a little bit, where the original investors get nothing and everybody wants to be the investor that gets the return. Well, that never ended up happening. And again, it's sad that what was supposed to be good watch media turned into this sort of investment vehicle where this sort of sequence of manipulative investment rounds happens. When I say manipulative, it's because you're promising a dream. It's not making money right now. So it's been losing money for a long time, which is no shame in of itself if you have the money to spend. But this has never been a successful venture. And so all these people I see online, oh, congratulations or something. Like, congratulations to who for what? There's not a lot of winners here. And Watches of Switzerland is getting a low-priced asset. This is, for me, kind of sad because this is not what I want for competitors. I want them to be better companies that have prouder stories. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah, I just don't see where this goes. I can't. It on the one hand, it makes sense right now, but I don't see how. Brian Duffy's a canny Scotsman. I know a few of them. As to how this
I
works
think you're wrong.
long term. Okay, go on then.
I'm going to say, controversially, to throw your cat amongst the pigeons, if I had to co-invest on a big watch deal in the last 12 months or however long it is, I'd take this one over Bremont any day.
Oh, okay. You're comparing,
and that's not down to the rebrand, but like Ariel says, like, a lot of investment deals are sold on dreams, and I've been part of selling the dreams quite often, so I know. But there is logic to this. If you look at kind of, I think you need to look at it in a bit like they're getting to people who are kind of in market for watches. I think I would say, I don't know if Aaron agrees with this. This is my perception of the brands, but I would say Hodinkee goes slightly more mainstream than aBlogtoWatch. I think aBlogtoWatch is very much slightly more of an enthusiast platform. I don't know, and Hodinkee is slightly more mainstream. And I think giving it they obviously tried to give it a retail arm, and it didn't. They tried to do Hodinkee with a retail arm, which kind of didn't work. But a retail arm with media support improves Watches of Switzerland's e-commerce capabilities, including, improves their traffic, improves their data. And I can see how it would improve their online sales as much. And for watches, and you mentioned the Rolex thing, but actually, I think there's a big challenge in watch world of getting people who basically think the only the only mechanical watch in the world is a Rolex, and actually it's probably a good way to educate people away from that thinking and to buy non-Rolex watches online from Watches of Switzerland.
The question is, if you use it as a lead generation tool, which I agree could effectively be used that way, how long does the current database of content give you in terms of relevancy? Because as we know as media, you have to keep making more media all the time. And that's where these investors all kind of miss the mark, is they think that you can put a budget together for media content and have a several year outlook. No, you have to keep writers on board. You have to get stories done. Like, it's a complicated thing. So the question is,
but you also get the legacy articles that are already ranking quite high in SEO.
So, but the question is, how many years does that give you value? Like, if you just stop putting a lot of effort in right now, Ben already has made it clear long ago he doesn't want to be media like aBlogtoWatch. So has he just become content creator? Does it just give a list of topics from from Watches Switzerland, like cover this year, whatever it's going to be? He's already established that that's not what he's that interested in. There's not much to grow. He's just managing a team of editors, much like he probably used to do, which is something is a huge part of aBlogtoWatch, something I enjoy. But it
depends how clever they are. I mean, we've now got at my other company, not D-Trash, at my other company, which is significantly larger.
Have you not got a hat for that,
I do have a hat as well. I should go change it.
Is it just called Trash?
Oh no, it's called Pooch and Mutt, which is bigger than Bremont, bigger than Christopher Ward, but sells dog food. but we have a data team who are kind of analyzing the data of what people are looking for, what's trending. We develop products in line with of what people are searching for. We've got a big SEO team that's kind of driving people so we're capturing from both a product and an article and a media side what people are actually interested in, and you can build that. And I think if Hodinkee is a good platform to be able to start doing that kind of work for Watches of Switzerland, that should be kind of looking at trends, should be going what's going on, and becoming the trusted source for that person who I just think there's in the world of watches, and I think you guys do this a lot, but in the world of watches there is, I went to quite a posh hotel over the summer, and I would say 95% of mechanical watches that I saw were Rolexes. And there's just a massive opportunity to educate people away from that. Of like,
Sure.
Actually, there's a lot better, there's a lot more interesting available. And I think Hodinkee could do that, and Watches of Switzerland could be the way to cash out. I also think they probably got an absolute steal, because when numbers aren't published, that tends to be the case.
I think it's probably, my guess is it's effectively been bought for the liabilities that exist, and to pay all the bills. So it's probably been
let's be honest.
Just one question. Though. The issue for me is that strategy only works if every watch is a good watch. There are some crap watches out there. There are some watches produced by big brands that are rubbish. That have problems. Are we ever going to see Hodinkee report about a bad watch that you should not buy this watch because the movement's rubbish, it's broken, it's overpriced, whatever? If Watches of Switzerland stocked the Trump watch, would Hodinkee say, don't buy this watch? And I think that's the fundamental problem. I'd be really interested to see the first time.
I think you're assuming quite a lot there.
Okay.
You're assuming that may happen. And there's actually a lot more, as you guys know, hopefully, there's a lot more to watch journalism than good watch, bad watch as well.
There's maybe. There's a
maybe.
And there's a maybe.
But, there's watches that can be good, but, off trend and, off market, but, technically good. And there's a big gap between like a technically good watch and a watch that you might want to wear, or something that's innovative, but you might not want to wear it.
I want to clarify something here in terms of the money raising rounds and LVMH. People put a lot of stock in the whole LVMH relationship, and I think that they need to understand what that is. LVMH, like many companies, has speculative investment arms, small little groups that are there to invest in for technology companies that can help promote luxury, right? So this is not LVMH in total. This is sort of an incubator or like a startup area to see what learnings can be done. And, the people at Hodinkee probably got pretty good at pitching themselves and making decks and stuff like that and learning how to talk to investors, because they have to do a lot of that. And they just sort of made their rounds of seeing who they can pitch to, who might be interested, who they can beg for money. And that's what they've been doing for a while. So, they probably had a far less attractive offer this time around than when they were going to LVMH. But what I'm saying is these aren't like LVMH went to them and be like, boy, guys, you got something going on here. We want to be a part of this. This is them finding like kind of hustling, as we say, and finding this small group within LVMH who made a position to see what they could learn based upon a lot of promises made in pitches. And then, where did that go after a few years? That, they chose not to renew that. So I think we have to be very, very aware of what all these big names mean. And there isn't like a bunch of smart people looking at finances being like, oh, this looks good. This is people that are kind of bailing out people that are begging to be bailed out.
Yeah. And also, so LVMH have an investment arm called El Capitan, and El Capitan has multiple funds, and they invest at high levels, medium levels, low levels. And actually, I've spoken to a few of them, and they don't necessarily talk to each other. Even the funds don't necessarily talk to each other. And for those that don't know, the job of these investment funds is to invest. And, sometimes it's kind of like in every 10 investments, you expect one or two to pay for the 8 that are going to fail. And then if you're in the 8 that are going to fail, that Hodinkee probably was, you need a way out. And this was basically a way out. And that doesn't mean Hodinkee is necessarily like a terrible investment. It just means it's not going to 10x its returns and be sold to someone else.
And 100% of the time, that is the exit strategy. My investment isn't working. I will sell it at a loss because I want it off of my books. The policy is to sell it. It's not like, oh, this is doing great, this is the time to sell. It's, this has not been meeting whatever expectations we want for a certain number of years. The policy now is to just offload it to someone else.
Yeah, and that doesn't always mean it's been a failure. It just means it's not worth the time of the people who, the investment managers are looking at, and it's not going to get to a good exit multiple for them.
I think that's an interesting point, but it's complicated by bringing the original founder back.
Why?
Oh no, you'd always do that. You'd always do that.
He didn't have a job.
True. Okay, he was
very available.
He was available. Well, no, because I can if you're moving to being wholly owned by somebody else, I can understand if it was moving from investment fund or VC to VC, whereby one VC says, we can do a better job on this. Let's get the original guy back. Let's create the model that we sold on originally. So VC firm comes back and says, let's get the old band back together. We'll do that for 5 years and then we'll flog it to somebody else. But this has been moved on as a wholly owned subsidiary, 100% to Watches of Switzerland. There's no way of getting, unless they sell it.
This is so obvious. Remember, there was debt. He had to promise his servitude to them to buy it.
Yeah,
he was probably liable for some of that debt. This was his ability to cut clean. Has to serve the new masters for a while, but this, I'm pretty sure this is Watches of. I would demand it. Be like, wait a minute, have people. People aren't going to be excited about it. They're going to think we bought a dead entity. If you don't attach yourself to this, there's no excitement for anybody.
Yeah, and also in the world of new media, most brands that have been successful in kind of a new media world have a front man. Mm-hmm. You need a front, and whatever you say about the business and whatever you say about his finances, he's a great front man. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think. I mean, you might not. No one's nodding to that, but it is. He's built up a profile. He
hasn't served Watch Media well. I mean, when it really comes down to it, he has not done that. He's promoted a whole litany of other interests, sure, but he hasn't really done that well to Watch Media, in from my experience. And I'm pretty close to the topic.
Yeah, but he has built him. I'm saying he's done people know his name. People know his name.
We all agree. If we were Watches of Switzerland in this position, that is something that we would demand and probably likely get.
Well, we can always troll the internet and see there's a couple of air-cooled Porsches available for sale just to back that deal up. But let's... I
wish rolling my eyes made a sound.
I'm sure we can add a sound to the track just for your eye rolling. What would you like it to be? Bagpipes?
You really tried for some bagpipe relevancy there.
We'll try for some bagpipe. Right, let's say
maybe a slide whistle.
A slide whistle. There we go. We'll add a slide whistle to that. Right. Let's actually talk about some watches. So we'll play hit miss. Maybe we'll start on this new release, the Omega Speedmaster Anniversary Series, first Omega in Space watch. Obviously, soon to be overtaken by Rolex and its first or next Submariner on the Moon watch, if you're following the earlier conversation. David, you gave this a quick once over on the press release, I assume. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to do pretty well. It's priced reasonably. It's just a bag of Speedmaster Anniversary, whatever. It's at this point, it actually sparked an idea for a next upcoming grinding gears that I'm going to write, which we can discuss at the time when it's published. Okay. But that should give you enough of a hint on what I think about this. Even though this is a decent watch, I mean, it has the higher grade 3861 movement, nice proportions, neat dial, less than $8,000. I mean, that's pretty good overall, I think.
So explain to me, just for and everybody else who's confused by the number of SKUs that have the word Speedmaster or space attached to them, what actually is this watch? Is this basically the entry-level watch for the Speedmaster, or is it
No.
slightly? Is that not quite right? Is it?
I wouldn't call it entry level. I mean, if you look at it, it comes with the 3861 master chronometer movement. You know, that's the largely overhauled and upgraded 1861. So that's pretty cool. Anti-magnetic, free sprung balance, all the rest of it. So that's quite a high grade movement for Speedy today. Which is to say that they have not played it cheap with this one. They have somehow redone the sapphire crystal. I'm not sure if that's a first for this watch in terms of the speedies, but it's quite cool because it's hazelite shaped, so that you don't have that ring that some speedy fans don't appreciate on sapphire, because there's a different type of reflection that you get on sapphire versus hazelite. So, and Omega even did some press photos that highlight the fact that this has like a different reflection around the edge, and it has a little Omega logo in the center, just like Hazelite does. So it's a sapphire crystal front, but it is a lot like Hazelite. And for some Speedy fans, this makes a difference. So more power to them. $7,500 on the strap, 79 on the metal bracelet. So I think that's a strong package overall.
So this isn't the entry-level Speedmaster, it's the entry-level Speedmaster celebrating the moon landings. Is that the way to summarize it?
Maybe. I mean, how would you... I don't think that there's an entry-level Speedy, is there? I mean, we used to have the reduced...
Well, okay, the cheap... Is this the cheapest Speedmaster?
I think it sort of is, yes. I don't think that there's a cheaper one.
So if you want a Speedmaster and you want to spend as little money possible, and you're going to the Watch of Switzerland boutique because Hodinkee have told you this is the best Speedmaster you could ever have, and you must have it right now, you must buy it from Watch of Switzerland, is this what you're going for?
I mean, yeah, sort of. I mean, the regular Speedy Moonwatch Professional has a retail of around $8,000 now anyway, so it's right around there. Not much of a difference.
So, and what's the difference between this and the Professional? Just that it doesn't celebrate the moon in the same way?
This is a pre Moonwatch design. So this went to space, but we have not been to the moon yet. So this was the first Omega that actually journeyed into space. And so it has the alpha hands, it has a solid case back, and a different bracelet to the moon.
Right. So this is the Omega in Space Watch, whereas the other one is the Omega on the Moon Watch.
It's called the Omega Speedmaster, not yet Moonwatch.
Not yet Moonwatch, right? Okay. Well, let's give it some voting. So, yeah. Okay. On the count of 3, is it a hit, a miss, or maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Miss, hit, 2 maybes. Is a miss because I don't understand. Despite the fact that David has explained it to me, I still don't understand where this watch sits in the Speedmaster world. David, how'd you vote?
Yeah, I voted a hit because it's a speed. You go into an Omega boutique, you want the Speedy, you like this one, you buy it, and then you live happily ever after. It's as simple as that.
It's simple as that. Just a simple transactional relationship. Ariel, a maybe.
I voted maybe because I haven't seen it yet, and there's so many of the Speedmaster now that there's tiny differences, right? That can sway you in one direction or the other. So I really have to check this one out and see what it looks like in person. A couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago now, Omega seemed to make 2 decisions about the Speedmaster. One was that they really wanted it to be their Submariner in terms of like being a sports watch, which is considered like a jewelry watch. Or like we just want the world to consider our sports watch to be a jewelry watch, right? We want people to wear it with a suit and a tuxedo, like they just had this dream. And the second thing that they felt about it is that they need to keep reinforcing the design. Similar to the Rolex, they're like, we can make small tweaks, but ultimately we want to get the same design. But unlike the Rolex, the Speedmaster's never really hit a mainstream. It's always been just like kind of a nice looking tool watch. It's never been more. So they keep playing with it, hoping like in this iteration, is this what'll finally make it the jewelry watch? No, it's never going to be the jewelry watch. It's just not going to be that. So they're sort of continue to try here. So it's not the cheapest sports watch around. It's probably not the prettiest sports watch around, but I agree with David that everyone should have like one Speedmaster in their collection, or maybe a few, because it is a nice design. It's great for enthusiasts. So yeah, this might be the one for you based upon how it looks or feels. I think, Rick, as you pointed out, the story is almost immaterial at this point. It's just a bunch of gobbledygook. Like, don't even try to explain it. If it's the one you enjoy, maybe in the sense that it seems to have all the nice stuff, but because there are so many other flavors of this and we have no idea what's going to come out next, it's hard to know. I think if you have a Speedmaster, assume that you'll be happy with it for like 2 or 3 years before Omega comes out with something else you're going to want. You're just going to want to trade it for something else. So that's like the on the wrist shelf life now, unless you buy your Speedmaster and then again walk away from the hobby and don't look and see what Omega's been releasing for like 10 years.
That escalated really quickly from buying a Speedmaster all the way to leaving the hobby just because there's a new one. That's funny.
Guy, how'd you vote?
I gave it a maybe. I'm like, I think you had the right word, which was confused. I mean, like I do have a Speedmaster, but I got it like 10 years ago, and I think it was about £3,000. And I got the professional one because I actually really wanted the one that was the same spec as the one that went to the moon because I'm a sucker. Because I'm a sucker, and now I can't wear it because it scratches so easily. The hairstyle, like it's just ridiculous how much it scratches. I don't get this. Can't believe no one else has brought up like 2 of like aBlogtoWatch's signature complaints, which are
number of different fonts.
No, waterproofing.
Waterproofing, okay.
Which is crazy, and it's priced weirdly, and it doesn't make sense. It's like, what is it? 5? Oh yeah, the other aBlogtoWatch serial complaint is it's a 62nd anniversary, isn't it? Like, that's not an anniversary.
It's not.
Yeah,
like
true.
You always complain about that. Like 60th fine, 70th fine, 62nd. I'm doing your complaints for you because I like.
We
want
appreciate
that.
Thanks for the back.
I really genuinely appreciate that.
We get so exhausted from complaining about anniversaries.
Well,
yes.
A quick Google reveals that Martin Luther died at 62. So, could be that. Who else died at 62?
I mean, that's a spurious.
Sonny Bono, he died at 62 years old. Carl Sagan. Yeah, there's a whole website devoted to people who died at 62. That's weird.
That's super weird. Wow.
It's super weird. Yeah, that's super weird.
Yeah, I think they should stop messing with it. I think if you guys compared to the sub, actually the sub is not messed with, really.
Like this.
I mean, when I say messed with, I mean the most moderately small. And they do change it. I mean, David and I know they do make changes. It is real. But they figured out, like, wait a minute, it looks nice. There's really nothing else to do except figure out something else which looks nice. But the Speedmaster, again, it's never been. It's nothing wrong with it. It's a great design, but it's very much a tool. It's like a sexy gauge. I mean, that's about as good as it gets.
Wow.
But I think you can say the same about the sub. But I think the one thing is, if you look at like an advert for like a black date sub going back 10 years, the picture is all the same watch. And if you look at the Speedmaster ads going back 10 years, they're all slightly different with slightly different hands. This one's got like a dated logo that's been brought back. Like, they need consistency.
They can't figure it out. You're right. It's every iteration they can possibly imagine they will do.
But my point is, they should stop trying to figure it out and start promoting. Just pick one and promote it and make that the hero by keeping it consistent.
But that's not the Swatch Group way.
Well, yeah, that is true. I mean, as you've said many times, that seems to be the way with the Swatch.
We make watches. Movement. We make lots of watches. We are the Swatch Group.
Yeah, they should keep this the same and do some work on actual Swatch and stop them being incredibly loud.
Okay.
I feel that Guy and I, if we keep mentioning that over and over, eventually
one of these days.
It's one of the things that you said, Ariel, and it got in my head, and I'm like, oh my god, you're really right. It is really
super
bad,
loud,
and they sell so many. They have this whole group, and it's like, why would you just not fix that?
Well, maybe we need to sell aBlogtoWatch to Swatch Group as a solution of getting.
It's a great idea.
managerial thing into.
And you could put that in the contract that it only goes through. There's like a decibel reader on a swatch tick, and it has to go down before the deal completes.
So what I do is I force myself as some type of creative director at Swatch to be like, you're letting me fix this brand. Okay, you want aBlogtoWatch? I'm fixing you guys.
Here's a hot swap deal. There we go.
I would enjoy that, right? Turning that brand around using the resources available there. That would be fun because I like all those cartoon and video game collaborations. Perfect brand for it.
Well, there you go. That's the title of this show sorted. So Hodinkee sells to Watches Switzerland. aBlogtoWatch sells to Swatch. aBlogtoSwatch. There we go.
A Swatch to
Swatch is.
I've even
aBlogtoSwatch Swatch is done.
Renamed
Swatch
the
to
organization.
April Fool's just writes itself.
Hey, this isn't April Fool. This is Thursday writes itself. Right, let's check in on this from Tag Heuer Aquaracer Professional 200 Solargraph Titanium, a proper watch review of this. I really, really like this watch, and I've never been a fan of the Aquaracer, but I am increasingly becoming a fan of the Aquaracer. Ariel, tell us a little bit about this watch, hands-on with it.
So a couple of years ago, Tag Heuer sort of surprised us by coming out with the Solargraph, which was a version of the Aquaracer with this kind of like, what was it, like forged carbon bezel or something like that. And it used a movement, was a new movement at the time, which is a Bucherer created solar-powered quartz. Bucherer is owned by Citizen. It ended up being basically a very beefy eco drive. It has a larger photovoltaic cell, charges faster, and has a longer battery life. It's about, I think it was like 6 months with a full charge. It can take just like a day to do that. So that was a popular watch. Now the Solargraph has become its whole collection. It's got a steel version and a titanium version. So this exact same watch can be gotten in steel for, I think, something like $700 less. There's a smaller version, which I think is somewhere like 34, 36 millimeters, which is a mid-size ladies watch that also has the solar movement in there. The titanium is about as expensive as it gets right now. This is just over $3,000. So it is a lot of money, but it is a really great tool watch in a lot of ways. It's lightweight, it's comfortable, it's 40 millimeters wide. If you're willing to pay a bit of a premium for that sort of like Tag Heuer name, you're getting a pretty decent thing. I'd say the one complaint, and this is something that there's no easy technical solution here, but I really want the seconds hand to perfectly line up with the indicators on these
for $3,000. Yes,
quartz watches. It's not consistent. There's some watches that are really inexpensive to do it well, and there's some very expensive quartz watches that don't do it. I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker. I still think it's a great watch, but it adds just another high level of personal assurance and pride and credibility and just all these positive attributes when you see that seconds hand just like perfectly line up with the indicator. When they place the hands, my understanding is that with these movements, the technician is blind in the sense they don't know exactly where it lines up. So it's hard to do this properly. It sort of needs to be engineered into how the movements are made. Like some of the Japanese moves to do this, like they're just assembled totally differently. Not a Tag Heuer thing. It's really just related to the movement. But that's the one area I'd like to see improvement, especially at these price points. But that's the Tag Heuer Aquaracer Professional 200 Solargraph Titanium watch.
Good stuff. Right, let's give it a hit in this, or maybe 1, 2, 3, go. Miss, hit. I love this watch, but as you say, it misses the second markers. How it's just ridiculous. And at least it misses it consistently, but it would simply take a little tweak, a turn. I assume you would just need to turn the movement slightly because the date this is presumably.
I mean, I don't want to have like a boring discussion about it, but basically you have the hand, which is pushed down under the pin.
This is a watch podcast. This is the single solitary place for a boring discussion to happen, surely.
Okay, so there's this pinion sticking up. There's a pinion, so it's like a rod. And then using pressure, this hand is mounted on top of it, okay?
It's friction fit.
The hand does not necessarily know exactly where the zero position is, like the position of the rod, like where to align it. That's why I say they're blind. Like they're not sure where. So it's engineered so that like it's sort of in the right spot, but you can sometimes get a hand which literally lands perfectly between two markers, right? That's like the worst case scenario. So that could happen, and those are rejected. So what they do is they look at it, and like if it's within the zone of tolerance, they're like, fine. Otherwise, they have to pull off the hand. But because they're friction hands, they're not designed to come on and off again, on and off again. It's sort of like you put it on once, and that's it. So that's sort of why it's happening. And again, there's ways of engineering around that, but even if you pulled the hand off, then you'd have to eyeball it and be like, oh, I have to move it a little bit. So it would vastly increase the time, and then it would actually harm the hands, because if it's going on and off again, they could break it. These are delicate things.
I cannot accept any of this.
I hear you.
At
I
all.
hear you. It sounds lame. I'm just explaining, what's going on.
I think if they wanted to, they could do it. Maybe the step motor or something could be, like adjustable a tiny little bit, or maybe you would not have to like remove the hand itself, just slide it a little bit. I think there are all kinds of ways to do this. If
the motor had more steps and you could adjust it that way, that would be an option.
Yeah.
That's how the Japanese do it. They just have a lot more little micro steps, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the technology, we have we've been to the freaking
Sure.
moon. I mean, God damn it.
No, we totally have the technology.
Maybe this is a sign that we didn't go to the moon. Maybe this is it.
Yes.
This
Yeah, we can. That's exactly right. Nah.
is final proof.
Yes.
Final proof.
We can't align a freaking second hand for $3,000. No way we went to the moon.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. David,
Proof.
how did you vote?
A beast, of course. I mean,
A beast.
I'm on the citizenwatch.com website browsing super titanium eco drive die watches for $412.50.
And they all light up.
And they
all
look
light up.
fantastic,
Good stuff. Good stuff. Ariel.
I voted a hit. I like this. I mean, people don't necessarily want to be like, but I don't care if you don't know the name. It's a great tool watch. Like a lot of people just want to be like, yes, I am wearing a Tag Heuer, on this boating trip. People like the idea of having a name brand, but in a very utilitarian product, right? They sort of sometimes think that like they can't beat up their fancy watches. This is a fancy watch that you can take and do almost anything with. And so I like the idea that you can combine being a brand enthusiast with actually taking watches on adventures. This is not the only watch for this. And I do admit you have to pay a premium for it, but it is a good tool watch at the end of the day. And I appreciate it for that.
Guy, did you appreciate it?
No.
No.
I mean, I don't like the Aquaracer. I don't really like the design of the Aquaracer. And I'm looking at...
Do you like the Bremont logo on the back?
Yes,
I'm looking at
Yeah.
solar movements at the moment for D-Trash. And so I may have to kind of do a U-turn. And oh my God, it is a Bremont logo. But I may have to do a U-turn on this. But at the moment, I don't really get the solar movement because... all right, you're eliminating the use of a tiny, tiny battery, which, like, I'm not sure how ecologically friendly that is anyway.
It still has a battery.
So because this still has a battery, but you're eliminating having to replace that battery like every few years, which is not a great saving. And an automatic movement has no battery, and like there's better. And I just don't like ticking second hands. And if you had an automatic second hand, then you wouldn't have to worry about everything lining up because it's ticking more often, so you get rid of that worry.
Sounds like you need a Belova precisionist.
So I'm just a bit confused. I'm confused about solar movements. Like I said, I'm researching solar movements at the moment, but I kind of don't get them.
Let me explain where I think the benefit comes in, because you're not wrong. The area that they sell themselves is in what I call autonomy. All right, the idea with the automatic watches, I'll never need any extra tools or anything like to get it working. I just wind it or move it around a little bit. Boom, I'm good. With the quartz watch, there's this idea that like, oh, it's been sitting for a few years. I pick it up. Oh, the battery died. What a pain. I'm not going to wear that, right? But this one, oh, I can just keep it charged, or I can charge it, and it has a level of autonomy. So you can think of it more as a long-term adventure watch because it does not necessarily have the requirement of an external tool. So it's a small emotional thing, but that's really all it is.
Why do you not get that with a automatic watch?
You do, but it's not going to be nearly as accurate. So if you're sort of in a real adventure setting, sometimes you recognize if like this is my only timepiece, I can't necessarily rely on my mechanical watch.
Okay,
So you're
okay.
assuming someone like doesn't have a phone, they can check the time and
It's
reset
a
the watch
narrow.
time.
It's a narrow. Look, it's usually emotional, right? It's like the water resistance.
Yeah.
We're not going that deep. It's just like that little added thing.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
I'm not
But
saying
I
it's a
do not-
compelling argument, okay? But again, part of it is cyclical. EcoDrive got this right a long time ago, and they've been wondering. They've been sitting there in Japan, like, why aren't people all about the solar watch thing? It's great. And then, like 30 years later, people figured out. They're like, that's how long it took.
I think it's important to consider that there fundamentally are no compelling arguments for any kind of modern watch. There is no such thing as a compelling argument to buy a wristwatch.
Is this where we
No,
pull
but
up
if you-
sound bites from Tim Cook right now?
But if I'm not, I might be contradicting myself. But like, if you look at there's a Cartier Must tank, which has got the solar cell,
Yeah.
but it's half the price of the tank. So like, there's a compelling argument that you get a tank that you don't have to change the battery on for 15 years, and you're getting it for half the price. So I kind of understand that, and it's better than the normal quartz, but it's kind of the same, and it's the same price as the normal quartz, and you can choose between them. This one, I get it less.
So, are
It
you
also doesn't
saying
have
that
a second
Tag Heuer can charge $6,000 for the automatic version of the Aquaracer?
I mean, right.
You're listening.
It's a very good way of putting it.
$3,000 for a quartz watch seems high to me.
We also thought that, but then Breitling came around.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that is true. You've got a solid point there, but I think $3,000 for a quartz watch is crazy.
Look, I don't disagree.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
I think this watch would be a lot more marketable at $1,000. Everybody will still be making money, but Tag Heuer right now is so brand value conscious. They're like afraid of low price points. That's sort of what's going on.
No, I agree. I mean, yeah, you'd sell. I'd buy one if it was a 1,500 quid. Yeah, you get.
And they used. I mean, my
part with cash if this was 1,500 quid.
My
That's how
first,
good marketing is.
my first watch was a Tag Professional 200, which was a quartz watch, and I think that was about £300. A long time ago.
Right. Well, let's move on. Our final hit miss, maybe today. Hands-on debut, the H. Moser & C Pioneer Retrograde Seconds Watch. Ariel, you got hands-on with this. Give us the starting price on this one.
I think the price was like $26,000 or something like that, or $22,000. I forget. You'll tell me. You're staring at it. I'm sitting there meeting with Moser, just having looked at the passion fruit that we found very distasteful. And then like, oh, we have some other new stuff. I was like, oh God, anything. And they pulled this one out. And this was so much better to me. I was like, oh, I can get behind this. They've now introduced a petite complication, if you will, in the form of a retrograde seconds hand. And they wanted to create a little bit of open work so you could see the cam and sort of see how it works. It's elegant. It looks nice. And it's enjoyable. There is no functional value to retrograde seconds. You don't even know if it's the first or second 30 seconds. So if you're trying to track a minute, good luck. It's not about that. It just takes the Pioneer, adds a little extra. Does it make me want to Pioneer more than before? No, it's always been a nice watch. It's expensive, of course, but it has a lot of good qualities to it. I think that this watch on a bracelet has just a little bit more personality than the version that, it's just a two-hand or a three-hand with the I think the different version with the date, maybe it doesn't have the date, but it's just sort of a little bit more interesting than your basic three-hand watch, even though it is a three-hand watch. So I think it's interesting they're going this direction and not necessarily another new tourbillon. They didn't invent anything, but again, from a design perspective, it is among the sexier ways of expressing a retrograde seconds indicators. But still, my favorite was brands like Milus that did it when they were going through the retrograde phase, where they had the three retrograde indicators on the dial. That was one of my favorites when they did that. So that's the H. Moser & C Pioneer Retrograde.
Good stuff, right? For our final hit miss, maybe let's give it a vote. A hit, a miss, or a maybe. 1, 2, 3, go. Maybe. All maybes.
Wow, it's a winner.
Yeah, it's a maybe for me. I like the complication. I'm just not sure it quite works in this case for some reason. Maybe it's just that it's so fresh. I think Ariel is the metal work different? It's obviously a stainless steel case with a polished finish, and is it then stainless steel architecture but with a brushed finish around the retrograde seconds? It just doesn't seem. It looks like it's made of two different types of material. I think it needs to be made of the same type of material.
It looks
or
nice
the
in
same
person.
finish.
I wouldn't
nice
say
in
there's an
person?
issue with things looking mismatched. I mean,
Right,
you can
okay.
argue this is a sports watch. Why are you having sort of a whimsical complication like a retrograde seconds? There's all kinds of cognitive dissonance you can achieve by looking at this dial.
I don't mind whimsy.
Okay, again, it's not intellectually amazing. Like there isn't like a lot of thought that goes into why it's nice, but it's a fun extra thing. Again, if like
Okay.
you're just bored, you want something a little bit different, that's what you go. This is no one's waking up at night and be like, I've been thinking about this retrograde all the time. I got to get this. Like it doesn't capture your heart in the way that a more intellectual complication might.
David, $22,000 worth of boredom.
Yeah, I think I quite like these retrograde seconds because they're exciting, every 30 seconds, as opposed to a perpetual calendar that is exciting 5 times a year at midnight. So if you look at it that way, you get a whole lot more for your for your whole lot less. So I quite like that. I'm not a fan of the implementation that much, but that's subjective. But overall, I would love to see more of these interactive things, and I like how they expose the little wheel as well, so you can see it at work. I quite like this in a way. To see mechanics at work, basically, and to see how it functions. You look down at your very expensive watch, and you don't just see 2 static hands or boring sweeping seconds. Yeah, I quite like this one.
Let's be honest here. From going to the boring technical talk, if you look at this, you can see just how simple the actual implementation is. The cam is essentially a subsidiary seconds hand, right? But the cam moves the little arm, which moves the retrograde hand, and then each time the cam has that sort of cut in there, the hand jumps back. So in terms of the complexity of achieving this is like a very small number of extra parts. The movement does not need to be re-engineered in any way. This is literally a fancy dial if you really want to think about it. So that's what they had to achieve. So again, you look at this, they didn't have to change the movement. Again, that little cam in the middle, that's just a subsidiary seconds hand with
That's great.
enough torque. So it's just, again, it's a very efficient way to get more dial animation. Again, it doesn't need to cost that much. And I think that, but if I was like a budget brand, I was like, oh, this is what's hot now. I'm going to come out with my own version for a lot less, because you clearly can.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting had they put some loom on the second hand.
Loom everything.
I think some loom on that would have been fun, and on the second markers. I don't know if they'd have any loom on the second markers. Ariel, you were on the maybe track.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not like a must-have. I think it's too expensive for that. I mean, let's say Frédéric Constant came out with something like this. I think it'd be a lot more exciting because it'd be a few $1,000s. This is sort of another flavor for H. Moser fans. The Pioneer collection is an interesting one, but it's weird because it's expensive, it's sporty. Of course, they're trying to make it dressy. It's a cool collection, but it's their weirder one out. So they're trying to invigorate a little bit. It's a cool watch, but it's, it is very much niche appeal because it has a weird mixture of stuff in there. So I like that, but this concept is probably going to come to their other movements for sure, or their other cases for sure.
Guy, if you like copying this for a D-Trash, simple cam and some markers.
I don't know, not really. But I think what Ariel said about I could see it as a Frédéric Constant, and it's kind of interesting, more interesting. There's a million watches with like tourbillons down there, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's literally a really solid maybe for me. It's like I kind of get it. I think it's interesting. I think it is quite interesting, a bit conversationally, and you do get that excitement of it flicking back. But
that's Edward calling for you.
Yeah, offering me one. It's kind
talking
of
about my watch.
Feels a bit weird. I think the collection in itself feels a bit weird because I feel like they've got, what is it, the Endeavour, which is the posh one, and then the Streamliner, which is kind of the cooler one, and it kind of sits in between.
I think,
but it's like,
yeah,
those watches when you look at it, like, I can't say anything too bad about it. There's nothing too bad to say, but I wouldn't, it was not memorable.
for a company that doesn't produce a lot of watches, are they starting to have too many SKUs? Is it they overproduce it? Is it getting a bit like Doxa, that there's just another one coming along?
Well, I think every watch company, well, maybe not, but most watch companies eventually get to like their hero watch, like like we were saying about the Speedmaster is kind of like the hero watch, and I think the Streamliner is kind of more of their kind of iconic hero watch that is recognizable with the brand. So I would kind of, and we were talking like a week or two ago about Norcane and the Wild One. Like everyone has their icon. Yeah, I think they should probably lean more into the Streamliner personally. If they can only make so many.
Fair enough. Right. Well, that is Hit Miss Maybe for that week, for this week, and fundamentally that is our show for this week. Any final thoughts from anyone?
I was really excited to talk about the biggest innovation, which was a watch with 2 dates on it.
Where's this?
The NOMOS.
The NOMOS.
NOMOS.
It's the complication you didn't know you needed. Now that you know about it, you're still not sure if you need it, but 2 dates.
I think I am not aware of this. Where is this NOMOS you speak of? I missed this.
We just talked about it, I think, earlier
Just been
today.
published. Oh, there we go. NOMOS.
Yesterday.
Sean's
2 days. Yeah,
article
the 6th.
from yesterday. Hold on.
So
I'll
what's
quickly share this as we leave. So
What are
somebody
the
from
two?
NOMOS,
How I don't understand this at
Tangente
all.
2-date watch.
This is
So-
even more confusing than a Speedmaster.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's the date and then the date.
So
What?
tells you the date, and then it just makes you aware of what the date before would have been and what. So it's the 5th, but just to remind you, if it's the 5th, that means that yesterday was the 4th and tomorrow is the 6th.
This has given me a migraine just right away.
This is-
The 4 and the 5 lighting up at the same time when the big date says 5. Oh,
yeah,
I thought you'd
That's-
like this one, David.
I need a
weird.
lobotomy now. I mean, it says the 6 o'clock standard date is precise and instantly legible. And the other one is about tracking the progression of the month. In case you don't know that the 4th is relatively early in the month and the 22nd is like relatively
I
late
think
into the
the
month.
amusing thing is they decided to have both. That's the amusing thing. Like they had to keep the one at 6 o'clock. They're like, but it just doesn't look right without it. That's what's amusing me here. It's that they decided that
It's the
they
Germans
needed-
having fun. Don't you understand that? It's like
that's why I was so excited to talk about this. You know,
When the Germans
my
have
God.
fun, they do a thing twice, one well and one pointlessly.
This is
they definitely
hilarious.
understand the absurdity part of comedy. The irony, not so much.
Yes.
That's very true. That's very true. German and absurd comedy is something that goes together.
I wish this was a Monty Python episode in which John Cleese would try and sell this watch to somebody. Like, look, sir, you need 2 dates, but why do I need 2 dates? It's always like either the 4th
I
or
want
the 5th, but
watch
this
to
is
have
just two.
more redundancy. The same time
Yeah.
twice, same cal.
Well, I think we've got to add that to our watch design clearly. So the question is,
5 dials, all the same time.
in our
More
watch design,
redundancy.
we need to have some element of it which is just doing exactly the same thing but 3 times. So we're gonna.
I'm
we're gonna
absolutely
have 3
stunned by
dates in our
this.
watch.
Wow.
on
We
the
need
watch.
we
I-
need a hand that points at the aperture.
Okay, that's it. So a center pointed hand that points at the outside track that is also showing the hand. Yeah, that's
Seems
exactly
to be a thing.
That's it. So and somehow linked to, so you put the center date, so the date that's at 6 o'clock you put nearer the center of the watch, and then the subsidiary hand comes off of that points to the pointer, so each date is pointing to the other date.
Gentlemen, start your photoshops.
Yes, okay. Well, on that note, we shall leave you with some German absurdist watch comedy, the NOMOS
Love it.
Tangente 2-date watch.
Good for you,
That's our
Nomos.
show.
You like that?
Good
Like
for
it's
you.
up to date? Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Wow.
Huh?
Tip your waitress. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Do get in touch. I'll save the bagpipe music and WhatsApp number till next week, so as you can, all be, really looking forward to it and demanding it. But from us, that's it. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
The wormhole of redundancy has now been opened by the Germans of all.
I'm still looking at this thinking you guys are like joking and there's something that I don't get. Like, I'm really confused by this. This is going to haunt me all day. Like,
Yes.
I can't imagine sitting
As a
like, in a
marketer, you should
meeting.
appreciate this. You're highly
But-
engaged, and you don't know why.
But somebody must have just sat there and gone, like, if they'd done, you know, like William would do, and they
This
kind
is
of
the
changed the
clickbait
date
of watch
wheel.
design, okay?
But if they changed the date wheel and kind of made that kind of fun, but then
Yeah.
had the other date, like I can't imagine sitting there going, all right, we really need a watch with 2 dates. Like,
No one's
is
ever asked for this. That's true. No one's thought. If you know what this
unreal.
watch doesn't do very well, just tell me the date. So I think I should do it twice.
But I don't understand why somebody just didn't go, no, don't make this. This is stupid.
Remember how to invent something new without inventing anything new? That's opening up another hole on the dial.
Wow.
That's all they've done.
It's
They've
very
decided,
odd.
wait a minute, there's more places here that we could make windows to show the exact same thing.
This ends all the date window debates for the rest of eternity.
Oh,
Like,
if-
should it have a
Do you
date?
think
No, it
that's
should
right?
have
Sorry,
2.
is it just one date wheel with 2 openings? With like
Yes,
the color
it's
and
one
Yes.
date
and the
wheel
numbers
with
and-
2 openings. I want this watch to make people like, wake up in a cold sweat at night. What were they thinking?
I want
I'd
to miss a
actually really
flight
like
just
to see
because
it,
of this.
like on the 15th, 16th, and see if like a little bit of red pokes up out into the other date window as well.
This is NOMOS watches selling in action. People are going to buy it. I want to spend several thousand just to see what happens on these days. Okay.